Television. It's something that's existed for decades, and it's something we can all enjoy. But everyone has their preferences. Personally, I've always watched a lot of TV, and especially now that I'm spending all my time at home, I have lots of time to dive into various series. So today, I wanted to sit down and rank my top 10 favorite TV shows of all time, and talk about all of them in one big video. Before we get started, I just want to preface this by saying that I'm not ranking the TV shows that I think are the best, I'm simply ranking my favorites. So while you may disagree with some of my picks, and if you do, feel free to let me know in the comments, just remember that in no way is this list meant to be objective. Another disclaimer is that since I'm talking about TV shows, there's bound to be some spoilers for different shows, so if a show comes up that you haven't seen yet and want to see, and you want to avoid spoilers, feel free to skip ahead. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Coming in at number 10, we have Family Guy. Now, I was initially reluctant to put this on the list, but then I figured it deserved a spot, and I'll tell you why. I was addicted to this show back in the day. When I was in grade 7, I ate, slept, and breathed Family Guy. I think I've seen the first 13 seasons about 6 times now. At that young age, the humor was revolutionary for me. But nowadays, when I rewatch the show, sure, some of it is still really funny, but I find I've grown out of the type of comedy the show goes for somewhat. On top of that, the most recent seasons have been pretty lackluster, and it's pretty clear they're running out of ideas. But since this show was so important to me when I was younger, I'm giving it the lowest spot on the list. A general theme with this list is that even though I like all these shows and they all hold value to me, I'm going to be more critical of the shows I've placed lower on the list because I want to explain why they're low on the list. So that's why it may seem like I'm bashing some of these shows, even though they're my favorites of all time. So keep that in mind as we move along. Alright, and at number 9 we have Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I guess I'll get this out of the way quickly. I'm pretty basic, so I like a lot of the Greg Daniels / Michael Schur comedies. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is no exception. The show is hilarious, with a lot of memorable characters from the charismatic and goofy Jake Peralta to Scully and Hitchcock, who are pretty much only there to be made fun of, but are great members of the cast nonetheless. There is a reason why Brooklyn Nine-Nine is only number 9 on this list though, and not because of the name. While the show does a great job of being funny and having some interesting storylines, I feel like a lot of the characters aren't that deep, and I have a hard time relating to them or feeling for them in tough situations. Maybe it's because the most recent of the Michael Schur comedies that I watched, but I found everything to be somewhat predictable. Like, in Season 5, Jake and Amy are gonna get married, and in Season 7, they're gonna have a kid. In addition, I feel like they lean too heavily on recurring gimmick episodes like the Halloween heist without finding ways to make them feel fresh and exciting. But don't get me wrong, I still really like this show, and that's why it's on the list. And speaking of Greg Daniels, yeah, I know he didn't work on Brooklyn Nine-Nine personally, but he and Michael Schur were kind of a dynamic duo in television for quite some time. I want to give an honorable mention to Upload. I really like this show, but the reason why I didn't include it on this list was that it only came out last month, so I didn't want to be affected by recency bias, and there's only one season so far, so who knows how the rest of the series will end up going. But I highly recommend anyone who likes Greg Daniels watches it on Amazon Prime Video. Anyways, back to the actual list. And coming in at number 8, we have the American version of The Office. It was really tough to decide between this show and the next show I'll talk about for the number 8 and number 7 spot respectively, but in the end, I put The Office at number 8. This is the first Greg Daniels comedy that I watched, which is kind of fitting since it's the first that came out, and it's an amazing show filled with great characters, storylines, and comedy. The fact that I love this show so much and it's only number 8 shows how good I think all the rest of the shows in this list are, and how hard it was to rank them. As for the negatives, after Steve Carell left the show midway through Season 7, the show did drop in quality, although for me it wasn't as bad as some other people online make it out to be. Yes, Seasons 8 and 9 weren't as good as the others, and some of the new characters they added, like Pete and Clark and Nellie, didn't really add much to the show, and don't even get me started on Season 9 Andy. But overall, the positives of this show far outweigh the negatives, and it's one of the classic comedies of all time. At number 7, we have Parks and Recreation. This is the final Greg Daniels / Michael Schur comedy on this list, so don't worry, you get a break after this one. Now, people who also enjoy these creators might be surprised that I put Parks and Rec above The Office, but to me, this show is just better. It wasn't as popular as The Office, but it was still pretty popular, and compared to The Office, it was consistently great over its 7-season run. In addition to its consistency, I felt like I could relate to the characters more, and the town of Pawnee felt like a much more developed world to me. Whereas The Office focused solely on the employees of Dunder Mifflin, Parks and Rec has lots of minor characters in addition to the amazing main cast that make up the town of Pawnee, who you get to know and love. To name a few, you have characters like Pert Hapley, Shauna Malwae-Tweep, Crazy Ira and the Douche, and of course Jean-Ralphio Saperstein. You really get the sense that Pawnee is a world that feels lived in, and the town reminds me somewhat of my own hometown, so I guess that makes me like it just a bit more too. And at number 6, we have Rick and Morty. If you're talking about a well-written, creative show, then Rick and Morty is one of the best in its subgenre. Over its 4 seasons and counting, it's managed to consistently get a laugh out of me, and also appreciate all the creativity that went into it. While there aren't that many episodes out there compared to some of the other shows on this list, what's significant about it is that when I think of the negatives of this show, I can only think of particular episodes rather than whole seasons. And even those episodes that I didn't like as much were still above average television and were only disappointing compared to the normal quality of the show, which is a high bar already, and they still reach that expected level of quality consistently. Alright, well, when I was writing this script, I realized that I didn't actually write a lot to say about Rick and Morty, but it's such a unique and creative show that there isn't really much I can say. You just have to watch it for yourself. So go ahead and give it a watch if you haven't already. Okay, now for number 5, I have RuPaul's Drag Race. Now, this is probably unexpected for a lot of you to see. Like, why would I put a reality competition show on my top shows of all time surrounded all by these great scripted masterpieces? Well, let me defend myself. Call me whatever you want, but I am a huge fan of this show. It's one of the longest ones on this list, with 12 seasons and counting, 17 if you count the spin-offs of All Stars in the UK version. Obviously, that's because reality television doesn't take nearly as long to produce, but I've seen every season and I loved all of them. The contestants on the show are great, and there are some great reality TV storylines that take place on the show. All these contestants are performers to begin with, so you get to fall in love with some great characters and root against the villain, and since it's all reality TV, you never know who is going to end up winning at the end of the season. I started watching the show about 2 years ago when there were already 10 regular seasons and 3 all-star seasons, but I was still on the edge of my seat each episode, not wanting my favorite queen to go home, and hoping they would end up taking the crown in the finale. Remember, this is a list of my favorite shows, not objectively the best ones, and for me, I know I can always have a good time with the Drag Race. Coming in at number 4, I have A Series of Unfortunate Events. I almost forgot this show when I was putting together this list since I haven't watched it since the final season was originally released on Netflix in early 2019. That in itself just goes to show how much TV I've been watching that I couldn't even remember a show from last year. But if I did forget, it would have been very unfortunate because of how great this show is. I always love a show with a consistent story being told throughout, and this is no exception. The show is based on a series of books by the same name, and it's a great mystery/adventure with lots of twists and turns. And it's too bad that it kind of went under the radar, because personally, I think it's very underrated. It's super well written, with some comedic elements inside of it, while also leaving you wondering what would happen next at the end of every episode and season. The show's quality is great, and I love the gothic styling to it as well. Overall, the story is consistently terrific from the pilot to the finale. Hey everybody, just wanted to once again add something that I didn't really think of when I was writing the script, but when I was looking through clips of A Series of Unfortunate Events to edit into this video, I noticed that I forgot to mention how emotionally compelling this show is. One thing that I forgot to say is that this whole time you're rooting for the children, the protagonists, and every single time it never ends well for them, and you're always left feeling upset because you want them to be successful, but unfortunately, well, as the title implies, it's a series of unfortunate events, so things never go well for them, and it's upsetting because they don't deserve that, and it really draws you into the show emotionally. So that's another thing I forgot to mention, so you should definitely check it out if you've never heard of it. Alright, we're almost done, there's only 3 left. But before we get into my top 3, I wanted to name another honorable mention, which is Arrested Development. The reason why I excluded this show from the list is because I'm currently watching the show right now, and I'm only halfway through season 2, so there's quite a bit to go. But the show is clever and hilarious, and frankly reminds me a lot of another show on this list that I've yet to mention. But since I'm not done, this is gonna have to stay an honorable mention for now. Kicking off the top 3, we have Better Call Saul. Now, I know putting this show on the list kind of spoils the fact that another certain show will probably be on the list too. But nevertheless, I wanted to put it here because it's so amazing. The fact that they took the supporting character from another show who really didn't know much about, and spun him off into his own show which has a great story and pushes boundaries in terms of cinematography, really goes to show how great the show's creator Vince Gilligan is. I know the show isn't over yet, but there's only 1 season left, and of the 5 seasons so far, they have been consistently great, and I love getting to learn about the backstory of Jimmy McGill, as well as some of the great insights into the crime world of Albuquerque before a certain high school science teacher entered the scene. Some of the things they decided to highlight were really clever that give further explanation and backstory, such as in Season 4 of Gustavo Fring trying to get his meth with Superlad built. It takes the things from the original show they originally had to suspend your disbelief for, and it makes them all the more realistic and gives them depth, which I really appreciate. Add on to that, the great performances from all the actors, and it's a show that deserves an insane amount of praise, and I'm surprised it's not earned an Emmy yet. Here's hoping. Alright, and my runner-up at the number 2 spot is Breaking Bad. Yeah, you all knew this was coming. Out of all the shows on my list, I would say that this is the objectively best one, easily. Vince Gilligan is an amazing writer, and cultivated an amazing show that will go down in history as one of the best ever. Throughout all 5 seasons, there was not a single bad episode. Each one had great dramatic moments, and being able to see the development of Walter White from a meek chemistry teacher at a local high school to a cold-blooded drug kingpin was an amazing journey. Not to mention the amazing rest of the cast and performances by Aaron Paul, Anna Gunn, Dean Norris. Man, I could just sit here all day naming every actor and how they nailed their character. I actually only watched this series this year. I think I started sometime in February and finished it in March, before moving on to Better Call Saul, and I got the complete series on iTunes for my birthday, which at the time of writing this was only 4 days ago. So I'm rewatching the series to look for anything I missed and checking out the bonus features. With this show, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and it was sad when it ended and when some of my favorite characters ended up kicking the bucket throughout the show. And even though it's not part of the show, I did enjoy El Camino and what they did with Jesse to wrap up his journey in the show. I mean, what else can I say? It's Breaking Bad. You know how good it is. And that's why it's the runner-up on my list. And finally, my number 1 favorite TV show is Community. Now, this is a show that gained a lot of popularity recently since it got added to Netflix earlier this year. But Community is a show that I started watching when it originally finished airing in 2015, and it holds a really special place in my heart. This show was the first ever show I binge-watched, and it was the first ever show I binge-watched together with my dad, which has become somewhat of a tradition with us. But unlike Family Guy, in addition to my personal connection to the show, it still holds up today when I rewatch it. This show has the same creator as Rick and Morty, Dan Harmon, which shows when you look at the 2 shows side by side, since you get to see the similarities in the fact that they're so creative. In fact, Community is somewhat of an amalgamation of all the best parts of some of the other shows on my list. While it's very much a sitcom and doesn't have a progressing storyline throughout the show, it uses callbacks and recurring gags to show a clear timeline of the years Jeff Winger attends at Greendale Community College. Like Parks and Rec, the show has enough side characters to create a comprehensive world, such as Starburns, Leonard, and Garrett. Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Community has its fair share of gimmick episodes, but unlike that show, it has a way of making them feel fresh and enjoyable every time, like the paintball episodes or the documentary-styled ones. While absolute chaos ensues at Greendale, the characters still feel somewhat grounded and real within the chaos, and even in situations like all-out paintball war at the school spun as a parody of spaghetti westerns, the characters are developed and act like themselves. Community is also great when it comes to meta-humor, with the show frequently poking fun at itself with characters like Abed and Deer explaining how if life is like a TV show. I even enjoyed the latter seasons of the show, even season 4 where showrunner Dan Harmon was absent and the show self-labels as the gas leak year. If I had to recommend the show to someone, I'd tell them to start with either Season 2 Episode 14, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, or Season 3 Episode 4, Remedial Chaos Theory. Both are amazingly written episodes that are hilarious, and also allow the viewer to get to know the main characters. So even though the show might not be objectively as good as something like Breaking Bad, I think it's one of the greatest comedies of all time, and for me, it has to take the number 1 spot. Finally, finished writing the video. Oh, hello there, didn't see you. I'm Oliver, and thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you're already subscribed to me, then you're probably used to the fact that my content varies wildly when it comes to genre. But this is just a fun idea I had to make a top 10 TV shows, and if you like it, and if it gets a lot of attention, then I might make some more, like top 10 movies, or going more in depth on the individual shows on this list. So if you want more of this, then let me know you like it by subscribing if you're not already, and liking this video and commenting, and sharing it to whoever you think might like it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!